I'm your host, Ray Dogum, and welcome to VibeCast. VibeCast is Vibe Bio's weekly podcast where we explore some of the hottest topics in drug development, investment strategies, and technology innovation. Our guest today is Justin Olshavsky, founder and general partner of the Pioneer Bio+Health Fund, where he invests in early-stage biotechnology, life science, and healthcare companies. Justin led his previous company, Voyage, through the Y Combinator Accelerator, and he's also an award-winning product designer and has a background in mechanical engineering and bioengineering. Justin, thank you so much for joining me today. How's your day going?
It's going well. Thanks for having me, Ray.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. Maybe we can get started with you sort of sharing a little bit more about your background and sort of what brought you here today.
Yeah, totally. I think you did a great job giving the brief introduction. So yeah, my background is in mechanical engineering, did my undergraduate training at Clemson in Mech-E, and then went on to do the joint bioengineering program at Berkeley UCSF for grad school. As you mentioned, took a company through Y Combinator in summer 2019, a company called Voyage Bio that we started actually during my time at Berkeley and UCSF with two amazing co-founders, Rob and Bridget. The company was focused on using hypothermia to reduce brain damage in stroke. And kind of came from my co-founder Rob, who was a heart surgeon, had a lot of ideas around using things they do in heart surgery and applying those elsewhere in the hospital. So yeah, we were working on this idea as students. We ended up getting funded by YC, so we left. We were able to finish with our masters and leave the university setting to go work on this company full time. Lots of more fun stories could share there, but I think to your question around being here today and talking about bio and bio investment. So Voyage was acquired a few years back. After staying on with the acquirer for a few years, left and started this fund, the Pioneer Bio and Health Fund.
Excellent. I appreciate that context and background. Just double clicking on the Y Combinator experience. I'm just curious because everyone I've talked to who's gone through that accelerator program loves it. Found it very valuable. Would you agree?
Yeah. We had a great experience in YC. Definitely recommend it to future founders and invest in many YC companies now as well. So huge support of the program. I mean, I think they fill this position, I think, for a lot of early stage companies, and why a lot of people, I've seen things that say like, there's many investors that wrote much larger checks to like Airbnb and some of the big success stories from Y Combinator. But, the reason the founders will talk about YC is because YC was the first one to believe in them and write like that first check. So YC, I think, often fills that position. And they certainly did for us. We had an amazing cohort of early angel investors in YC and kind of our first pre-seed round. And I think, YC shown this model works really well. They take bets on people who maybe other investors would be too scared to invest in. And, some amount of the time, I think it's like something like 5% of YC companies end up becoming unicorns now. That turns out that works really well. So was very grateful that they took that risk on us. Definitely set my life on a different trajectory than, kind of the consulting interviews I was doing before we were able to get funding for Voyage. And I think it's a great program, and for lots of reasons: the funding, the network, the program, and just how they teach you to be a founder, which we knew very little about coming from the university.
I'm sure, yeah. And being a founder is a lifelong journey as well. I'm sure you can agree with. What motivated you to actually start Pioneer Bio plus Health Fund?
So I guess carrying on the story from earlier. So Voyage was acquired, started doing some angel investing, as you do post-acquisition. Me and my co-founders were doing some of this just on the side as we were kind of transitioning into the company that had acquired us. It turns out angel investing can be pretty time consuming. I mean, people make a whole career out of venture capital investing. So we were looking for and kind of found this fund of YC alumni, Pioneer Fund, that was kind of running this model where they bring lots of YC alumni, all invest in the fund, also some external investors, and all work together to invest in great. At the time, it was really YC companies. What we've ended up building is kind of inside and outside YC companies. So yeah, doing angel investing, kind of found this fund and joined this fund. It turned out that the fund didn't really have a lot of people who were focused on the bio side at the moment. So they were investing in bio, but not a super strong specific focus in bio. And given that I had a little more free time after the acquisition, ended up kind of taking on some of that responsibility, helping lead some of the bio deals that we ended up investing in through the fund. And after a couple years of doing that, kind of part-time, found that we were seeing so many great bio deals that we wanted to raise a dedicated fund to support these companies.
That's awesome. How long did it take you to make that realization?
Yeah, so we were probably, it was like 2 years, kind of from joining Pioneer Fund, around 2 years, to actually, sticking a flag in the ground and saying we're going to raise this bio and health fund. So yeah, I guess there were a couple of things that kind of coalesced around that 2-year mark. So me and, definitely don't want to take sole credit for this. There are a lot of other awesome bio and health folks in Pioneer. Turned out I had maybe a little more free time because we had just sold the company. So I was, dedicating a little more free time to this. But me and this guy, Dave Messina, who's now my partner on the fund, we were both very involved in the bio companies. We were seeing great companies. So I guess maybe take a step back. The core of Pioneer Fund, the original Pioneer Fund, what we call like the core seed fund now, is focused almost exclusively on Y Combinator companies. So it's a bunch of YC alumni investing back into Y Combinator. And we were excited about that and investing in bio companies out of that. But we realized that we had this incredible network of YC alumni, and we're seeing interesting companies inside and outside of YC. So passing up on some of the companies that were outside YC, we wanted to raise this fund to be able to invest in those companies.
Gotcha. Well, so let me ask you. So you founded this new fund focused on bio and healthcare, and you are, co-founder and general partner. What does it mean to be a general partner in this fund, and what are like your responsibilities and goals? And I think this is probably similar with other funds, and so I'm just wondering, how is it maybe different here, or maybe it's not. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah. So responsibilities, goals. I mean, I think, as you mentioned, similar to other funds. So raising the fund, working with our incredible LPs. We, coordinate the team. We make investment decisions, due diligence on companies. I think those are the common things that we certainly do. Probably the most unique thing, and touched on this a little bit, but we have this very unique fund structure. I don't think there's any other funds that operate like Pioneer Fund does, where we have 350 YC alumni who are all LPs in the fund and are also, we call them venture partners, meaning they help bring in deals, they help diligence deals, they help make decisions, kind of help us across the spectrum, even, helping support portfolio companies after we've invested. So help across the spectrum. And so the unique thing about Pioneer, and I think the general partners kind of bring this all together, is being able to connect all of these people, all of these founders, YC alumni, with various areas of expertise. And obviously these are very busy people. They're not dedicating huge amounts of their time to the fund, but the amount of time that they do dedicate, we want to make sure it's used correctly. So making sure that we have the right people doing diligence on the right companies, making sure, that the people with the most targeted expertise can support our portfolio companies where they need it, things like that. And I think, so we do this in general for Pioneer Fund, and Pioneer Fund invests in many things outside bio and health, but our fund specifically, the Bio+Health Fund, I think it's a real superpower because there's so much diversity in what founders are working on in biotechnology, and the technical nuances are like much, much more complex than other places in tech, right? Like we could be looking at a company like Voyage, where we're working on hypothermia and stroke and developing medical devices in the morning. And you could be looking at, a gene editing oncology company in the afternoon. And these things are, they kind of fall under the umbrella of bio and health, but the expertise you need to diligence these companies are quite different than, like they're literally PhD level topics that you need to understand. So yeah.
Just want to jump in real quick, and I'm thinking, like it's kind of fun, right? You get to see the newest technologies that are out there, meet the teams that are working on them and talk about their challenges and some successes as well. And I have a background in engineering like you, a chemical engineer. So I think the way engineers think is we want to solve problems. We want to look at a process or a device, some of the chemistry, and just try to, or even biology, right? And figure out how to make the puzzle fit, or maybe create a new puzzle and figure that out too. So being able to see new ideas like this on a daily basis, it's an exciting thing, at least for me.
Yeah.
Do you think that's part of the drive for you? Is just the your own curiosity and the ability to do diligence on novel techniques or software and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of, if not the most exciting thing about, the operational side of ventures, that you get to learn about these, um, very specific things, but like specific things that can, hopefully change the way we do healthcare, change the way we manufacture things, change the world in a meaningful way. And it's super cool, and I think like very much more exciting to be able to do this with people who have subject matter expertise. Like I don't know how, if the typical venture fund is like three guys and gals, like GPs who maybe have, even in bio, maybe they have some targeted expertise in certain areas. Like, compared to us, where we can pull in people who have PhD level expertise, MDs who have worked in these fields, and be able to have them kind of for us, it's like in the Slack channel discussing these companies. It's one, really fun because you get to learn from a lot of other people, and I think it really benefits the fund to have that like targeted expertise in every company we look at.
Very interesting. So can you I know we talked about this already, but can you explain your investment thesis more in more detail?
Yeah, I guess the the short answer, and the answer that we sometimes tell folks, is like we certainly all have our own investment theses, and I can get into some of the things that I'm personally excited about. But given, we want to back the best entrepreneurs in the next generation of bio and health companies, and I think it is can be kind of, don't want to be over prescriptive about what that might be. There's obviously areas that are interesting. I mean, we're very excited about neurotechnology and longevity and psychedelics and biomanufacturing, like lots of excitement around those areas. But a founder who's like really in the trenches, maybe just coming out of a PhD, or maybe they're, spinning out of their clinical medical practice or something, they probably have a lot more insight than we do about the frontiers of the problem that they're solving. So we definitely always keep a very open mind to what are the best founders building, regardless of if we think that is if we had like previously thought or written a blog post or something about this being an area of the future. So yeah, I think, our thesis is definitely being very founder driven. Where are the smartest people we know working and innovating? And can we back them doing that? We see a lot, just given this massive network of venture partners that we have, these 350 YC alumni, we see kind of companies all over the spectrum. And so kind of, the job of the fund is to shuffle through and figure out where the most interesting founders and technologies are. And then, I have my own personal theses. So Voyage was a neurotechnology company. I'm very excited about the frontiers at neurotechnology. I think that'll be a big area that there's just not a lot that was capable in the kind of decades of the past. And there's a lot of new techniques for neurotech that are allowing us to modulate, measure, and kind of change the brain and read the brain and write to the brain. So that's definitely one that we're excited about investing in.
That's a super interesting topic because, I think about some of the demos I've seen in that space, particularly like Neuralink,
Yep.
And a couple other BCI or brain computer interface companies. And the way I see it is we're sort of just scratching at the surface right now of what's possible
Yeah.
with how we can interact with computers in the future. Like right now, we're very much all accustomed to a mouse and a keyboard or a touch screen, screen. But a lot of people haven't imagined being able to think about clicking on something or just looking at something and activating a response with a computer. How crazy is that gonna be? Like, what's your take on all this? Like, are people ready for this? Like, and I'm just asking because you've sort of been in the space, the neurotech space, for a while. I'm just curious about your opinion.
Yeah. I mean, the consumer implications, like one, I think consumer applications, kind of the big picture ideas pitched by Neuralink, are still fairly far off. I mean, like a lot of it will manifest in clinical practice. And there was a recent video that kind of circulated from some labs at Berkeley and UCSF that was, helping people who couldn't communicate be able to communicate with a BCI that was focused on like the language center of the brain. So yeah, I think there will be. I think, yeah, there will certainly be a big revolution. I don't know, I think there will be a revolution in kind of healthcare and how these things treat patients before there will be a consumer revolution, and probably for good reason, because the safety of a device that you're, just putting in your brain for the heck of it has better be very high, like vaccine level safe. So yeah, but I think it'll be massive implications, and and I've seen some interesting companies kind of working on this idea in like early stages. So like, not just if you have a BCI like Neuralink style that's interfacing with the brain, you can probably read and write pretty high throughput at that point. But yeah, I recently like saw a video of a company that was doing this for your tongue, like letting your tongue be an interface to a computer. So, and I guess like we already have, I definitely have heard others talk about this, but your phone is almost like a BCI, right? Like it just goes through the medium of your hands, and you're like connected to the internet that way, and actually pretty fluently through like computers and phones and things like that are omnipresent in our life. But yeah, so I think it'll be a whole new frontier and change the way we think about interacting with computers, or maybe we won't even consider it interacting, right? It's like
Right. We can get into a whole conversation about the singularity and the convergence of tech and humans. But if that's something everyone's interested in, leave a comment. Happy to dive into that in a future episode. But for this episode specifically, maybe we can, well, I guess one more question on the Neuralink sort of concepts. Yep. What do you think about the implications on treating mental health with sort of these applications? And I don't mean to, force a technology to treat something that maybe needs to be addressed through emotional, more human strategies or tactics, or, generally speaking. Just any high level thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think like one thing that still is very much holding neurotech, neuroscience, neuro everything back is that we still don't really understand the brain. Like we have a much better understanding. We have much better tools in neuroscience to understand the brain. So I think we're well on our way there. But yeah, at the end of the day, we don't fully understand, even things that have like maybe potentially clearer mechanisms like Alzheimer's, but especially things like depression and anxiety that are like, very, very complex conditions. So yeah, I think like I think there's like a fundamental scientific problem that as we understand these things better, we'll probably be able to develop more like therapeutics that cure these things. But I think there's also like interesting classes of it. We found, talking to someone about this the other day, we found that there are ways to kind of drive you maybe in the wrong direction on those things. So you think about like social media, right? Like kind of drives up levels of anxiety, drives up levels of depression. So that's sort of like a digital therapeutic in like the wrong way. But can you build digital therapeutics? So like, using software as a medical device, like there's companies already doing this, treating depression, but with software that kind of coaches you in the right direction. So I think that's a very interesting frontier, and it's kind of like a cop out, I guess, or like we don't fully understand the brain well enough, but we know that if we like engineer these systems and optimize them in a way that makes you, helps with depression, helps with anxiety, I think that's an interesting way and probably the best way we have of treating it until we really understand the brain and exactly how these conditions are manifesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And neither of us are neuroscientists per se. So, we can jump off this topic. I think it's just really interesting to me because there's so many ethical issues. And I also wonder, at what point do the investors play a role or have a responsibility to guide these companies in a way that's ethical and sustainable and, makes sense for the rest of the world? Because a lot of these technologies are super sharp, double-edged swords we're playing with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any just comments on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah. So there's definitely existence proof out there that technology is used in the wrong way, or even used in, I guess, a
neutral way, maybe.
Yeah, like
a seemingly positive way, right?
Yeah, like not necessarily like I'm sure some people might say different things, but the founders maybe didn't start off to raise the rates of anxiety and depression or something in the population. But yeah,
Right.
like I think it has to be a very present consideration. Like some of the I think the well, one of the best things you can do is be thinking about those implications from the very early stages of your company. I remember talking to some founders very on in our founder process, and like if you're not considering those things, then they go unconsidered, and you build products in a way that can shape the world in a way you don't want it to. And I mean, it can be surprising the impact that these products have, right, when they reach these massive scales. So, it, from I guess thankful for a lot of mentors. I guess we were building a therapeutic, so it was kind of I guess somewhat clear that if you could reduce brain damage from stroke, that would probably be a good thing generally for patients. But
Sure.
yeah, I think it's super important to keep that in mind from the earliest stages of company development.
Yeah, I appreciate that you sharing that. Tell us a little bit more about the fund, the Bio Health Fund, and sort of what kind of partnerships are you looking for? What's your goal in terms of how much are you looking to raise and by when, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, so BioHealth Fund, $10 million fund. We're still actually kind of on the back end of raising our fund one, but we have already started deploying. So we're very much in the early innings, common and venture funds, but like kind of doing our final close on the fund, as well as starting to deploy. But an exciting place to be. Yeah, so partnerships, I suppose. Like we're looking for great companies now that we are kind of in the late stages of raising the fund. We are in the maybe more exciting part where we get to back great founders, partner with great founders, and yeah, if I haven't said the word founder enough, that's a big driver for us. We look for really strong companies, early stages, pre-seed and seed. Um, so like anything from like first money in to like like that first or second round is our sweet spot. And then being able, I think we hopefully have a compelling value proposition to the companies, and that we're a bunch of entrepreneurs ourselves. We've been through this in various ways, shapes, and forms, and can help them as they get their company off the ground and do all of the early stage company stuff.
Yeah, that's funny you mention that. What I hear often is when you're investing that early, super early stage, you want to look at the team and the founder. When you're sort of, you know, maybe the second or third raise, you're starting to look at the product and the operational model and like the go to market strategy. Does that jive with you
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, like in
in general?
bio especially, you're gonna, you there's usually regulatory burden, or regulatory things that you have to do before you bring a product to market. You can't just develop
Right.
a drug that works well in preclinical studies and go straight to human studies or something, and for good reason. So yeah, it can take a while till there's any revenue or anything like that to look at. So and I think even on the tech side, like the as a pre-seed investor, oftentimes tech investors as well are investing like pre-product, pre-revenue, and yeah, so it's really I think you're definitely looking at the founding team, at what they've been able to accomplish. Hopefully, you can get a couple data points to see how quickly they're moving, because like even if sort of your Y intercept isn't very high on the growth rate, like there's no revenue to look at, there's no whatever is on the Y intercept, you can look at like the rate between a few points and see if they're moving quickly, and then
Interesting.
like are they going after a big market that has some amount of defensibility.
Gotcha. So oftentimes in biotech, we have this understanding of inflection points. So points in time where there's a data set that's going to be revealed that'll determine the value of the enterprise company in a meaningful way, in a super meaningful way. So in your perspective, how critical is it to understand these biotech value inflection points when you're evaluating a potential startup to invest in?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's very important. These are the way that value are defined. I remember like some of our early advisors in Voyage kind of walking us through this, because like sometimes not. It's obvious in like retrospect, but when you're like a first time founder setting out, it's a little maybe less obvious that this is how things work. But yeah, it's I guess like biotech, frontier tech, deep tech startups are defined by technical risk largely, especially at the early stages, right? Like something like Snapchat you or I could probably code up over a weekend, especially using like ChatGPT or something.
Right.
And then there's a ton of market risk. It's like, I don't know, do people want disappearing photos? Turns out they really do. But it's very different. Like if you can cure cancer as a biotech company, there's probably a decent market for that, assuming it's a cancer that hasn't been cured and like there's a patient population that's in need of that. So yeah, it's like this technical risk is what you're de-risking in the early stages of the company. And that's defined by these value inflection points. And I think there's definitely an art or science or some hybrid thereof of like figuring out which the right ones are and working towards that. And that's like the operational challenges of early stage bio. But I think it's also like why I love early stage bio, especially as like an operator, because as you mentioned, like we're both engineers. Like you get rewarded, or you've created something valuable by accomplishing a technical goal, which is pretty exciting. Like I'm more excited about like, hey, we like figured out how to make this system work. Now our company is better off for it versus like, I mean, also good things to be said about hitting certain sales milestones. But I think as engineers and technical people, it's a little more exciting to achieve the what was before not technically possible.
Very interesting. It's a good point. From your perspective, though, how is the current economic environment affecting your deal flow and potential investments, specifically for early stage biotechs?
So deal flow, I think honestly haven't noticed a ton of drop off in deal flow. I guess in general, kind of always wish there were more PhDs and postdocs and MDs and masters and and anyone kind of operating in the space. I think there definitely could be more people starting companies, and oftentimes those people aren't thinking about startups. But yeah, I think the deal flow has been consistent. Amount of people investing in the space has definitely gone down. So like there were definitely more like generalist tech funds that were more interested in bio, and I guess everyone was just kind of raising more money and investing more money in 2021. So maybe the tourist capital has left to some extent. But I think there's the seed remains pretty healthy. Companies out of YC in general are still able to raise a decent amount of money. I think the later stage has definitely cooled down, and that's driven by kind of the even later stage exits from that cooling down a little bit as well. But yeah, the benchmarks that we've seen our companies need to hit to raise an A or a B or some subsequent round has definitely gone up, and those later stage investors are asking a lot more questions, setting a higher bar, and taking longer to invest.
Awesome. This is my final question before we sort of wrap up, and so feel free to add anything else you'd like to talk about. I'm curious though, since you're at the forefront or the frontiers of a lot of these companies, being able to spot them early, are there any specific technologies that you see making a huge impact on human health in the next just few years?
Yeah, good question. So we talked about some of the neurotech stuff. Definitely excited about BCI and other ways, kind of ways for humans to interact with machines. I guess somewhat neurotech, but also somewhat like all over the body. General medical technology is like and saw this from some of the stuff we were doing in stroke. The ability to kind of deliver catheters anywhere in the body is really impressive. You can, and I think maybe underappreciated in medicine. So you can kind of, you can stick a tube, I guess, basically anywhere you want in the body, and then you can manipulate the local fluid mechanics there. And I think, using this for things like targeted drug discovery hasn't really been explored that much. Using it for like conditions of poor flow in the body, which I guess leads to another thing that I'm kind of excited about. It's kind of the hybrid of medical device and biotechnology will kind of converge in artificial organs. So I think there will be a lot of work in that and a lot of improvements in those technologies over the next decade. There's certain things that devices are really good at doing. There are devices that last 10 years that are partial artificial hearts and can basically act as, the left ventricle of your heart for 10 years. But they have drawbacks as well, in that the body doesn't really recognize them, eliciting immune responses and causing clotting, and always those kinds of problems. But I think the combination of like bioengineering and devices will allow us to overcome a lot of those problems and build better artificial organs. Lots of exciting work being done there. I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty exciting. I think that that alone is a huge field. So I appreciate that answer. And the future is so quickly approaching. I guess you can say it. I mean, it's always approaching, but just given the number of inventions and innovations in the last, post COVID, I would say it's just fascinating. Justin, I just want to thank you again for spending some time with me today and talking about early stage biotech investing, also about the Pioneer Bio and Health Fund too. And we just wish you great success in the future. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the community here before we conclude?
No, I mean, thanks so much for having me. I think if always excited about working with next generation of founders. We had many people who were awesome, like early mentors and supporters for us in Voyage, and so love paying it forward to future generations of founders. So if you're starting something in bio and health, would love to connect. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to put those links in the show notes as well, or in the description. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, comment. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you all. Appreciate it.